Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Everybody Loves Lists. And today I'll be giving you my top 5 of my favorite video game series of all time, Final Fantasy. This list might be somewhat controversial, and I know everyone has different opinions on Final Fantasy, but this is my personal top 5. And without further ado, let's just jump right in. Number 5, Final Fantasy IV. After all these years, Final Fantasy IV is still a gem. From its riveting story and bad guy turned good main character Cecil, to its iconic gameplay and world, Final Fantasy IV will always be a masterpiece in my mind. The art and music became iconic after Final Fantasy IV was released, and the things they did in this game would be etched into the lore of Final Fantasy forever. This game is also still pretty brutal in terms of difficulty level, and it's very hard getting to the end of the game. But getting there is so rewarding because it's a lot of fun battling through all the bosses and finding all the iconic characters along the way. I mean, what other game back in its time took you to the moon to fight your final boss? Number 4, Final Fantasy X. Titus and Yuna's story. This is the first Final Fantasy to feature voice acting, first released on the PS2 all the way back in 2001. I remember this being my number one reason to buy a PlayStation 2 at the time. This would also be one of the last Final Fantasies to really have a time battle system. Final Fantasy X took it a step further than previous iterations, where you could actually see which character will be allowed to go next. It also began the trend of not really having an open world as it was in the past games. You would select from your airship which areas to traverse, but you couldn't freely walk from location to location. I fell in love with this game because of its characters, like my favorite, Auron, its story, its music, and side quests. Who can forget fighting Sin or taking a break to play some Blitzball? Praise be to Yevon, Final Fantasy X. Number 3, Final Fantasy VIII. I might get some flack for this, but I love Final Fantasy VIII. I'm probably one of the few who enjoyed its battle system and junction system. One of my personal favorite endgame things to do is to get everyone to level 100 on the island closest to Hell, using the Odin trick obviously. You have to get Odin, and then you enter a bunch of random battles. The enemies on those islands are way too strong for you to kill alone, so you enter the battle, and then you run away until Odin appears at the beginning of the fight. If he appears, he does an instant kill, giving you all the experience points possible. And it's worth it to put in all that effort because at the end of the day, you get to face off against a mega weapon, and that is a pretty awesome battle, while also being very difficult. I really love all the fan theories created for this game as well, and I really gotta ask, is Squall really alive after that attack by Idea? And speaking of Idea, what an amazing character. I wish they would have more backstory for her than what they actually had in the game. I would say the characters are still iconic, and the opening intro is probably still the best there ever was in this series. Number 2, Final Fantasy IX. Final Fantasy IX takes us back for a trip down memory lane. In a time where every game was hyper realistic, Final Fantasy IX brought back the fantasy aspect of Final Fantasy. Its characters are amazing, and Steiner's running sound effects make that entire game. One of the last Final Fantasies to really allow full world exploration, as well as a multitude of side quests. In particular, I love the Chocobo Hot and Code minigame and getting all the way to creating a gold Chocobo and finding all those treasures in the ocean. But what makes this stand out above all are two things. The amazing story that was told with Zidane's journey and how Garnet became Dagger, as well as the most epic Final Fantasy soundtrack to date. Uematsu really outdid himself with this one. Now, I have an honorable mention to make. I can't talk about Final Fantasy without at least mentioning Final Fantasy VI. I will admit it's not in my personal top 5, but it is one of the best Final Fantasies ever made. From the music, to the characters, to the intro, and to that amazing opera scene, Final Fantasy VI was ahead of its time, and it's still surprising how great it looks on the Super Nintendo. Number 1, Final Fantasy VII. You guessed it, my personal favorite is Final Fantasy VII. I fell in love with this game when I was still young, and is without a doubt my favorite game of all time, let alone my favorite Final Fantasy game. The music and characters really make this one my favorite, and they don't skirt away from letting you play and explore how you want to, as well as the abundance of side quests within the game. I mean, who didn't try to breed a gold chocobo and get the Knights of the Round? Is there anyone out there that didn't try that? And the final boss, Sephiroth, he's so malevolent, yet still so awesome to fight against. He's iconic. He's been in many different games, even Smash Brothers. Final Fantasy VII really brought the series into a mainstream and pop culture and still has tons of remakes and side projects that are still being created to this day. Me personally, I can't wait for the next iteration of the remake. That's a video for next time. And there you have it, folks. That was pretty tough since they're all amazing, but I had to condense it down to 5, and that's my list. Let me know in the comments what your favorites are, and I hope you enjoyed this video. As always, thanks for watching, and hit that subscribe button. See ya!